Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. Today, we're joined by a special guest, Jeremy Savory from Savory and Partners. They're one of the biggest CBI firms in the industry, Citizenship by Investment, and we welcome Jeremy to the podcast.
Thanks very much for having us, Vance. Good to see you again.
Absolutely. So for context, we got dinner with some mutuals in Portugal. Well, what was that, like a month ago? Yeah, about a month ago.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, less than that.
So good times. And Jeremy graciously agreed to come on the podcast. Not too many CEOs of CBI firms make the time for things like this. So we'll try to use the time we have as best as possible. We were just talking offline about a new project or idea you're launching called the Millionaire Migrant. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's a project that's kind of been cooking for a few months now, and we decided that we wanted to go live at least at a smaller scale. I guess what it is really just trying to help people get a bit more understanding about not just citizenship and residency from the horse's mouth, but also just at large immigration options. We're going to include a lot of digital nomad options as well, but we're going to open it up into other things that people would be potentially interested in that overlap in the whole financial freedom space, which I
Mm-hmm.
noticed is, as we discussed over the very nice Korean hot pot that we had in Lisbon with our mutual friend, our learned mutual friend, I should add, that there's a lot more out there in this whole space um, around investing, a lifestyle. Business obviously comes into the mix. We had something else in common around that table is that we all have Latin partners, so that comes into the equation. Now it's citizenship by descent, citizenship by marriage, by birth,
Mm-hmm.
by residency. So now the whole idea of living a life that is not just rich financially, but rich on other metrics too. I noticed a lot of things now are not just about wealth mobility, which is the industry I come from, but mobility also ties into social mobility as well, which is something I'm quite passionate about. So yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of things. The YouTube channel is up. I'm not very trained in YouTube. I'm not very comfortable with YouTube. I've weirdly watched some of my own videos back and thoroughly disagree with things I've said myself, which is a bit odd. But yeah, so we're just doing this to try and let people follow the journey in two levels. Firstly, explain a little bit about other topics that might be of interest to them around this space, about financial freedom and the future specifically of financial freedom, because it's evolving constantly. But second, if people want to follow the journey of what it's like to try and build a business, because no one was there 15 years ago when I started, but it'd be interesting if people wanted to see, the challenges, and some people probably relate to it, people who are starting on their journey too.
Okay. And so the primary vehicle is going to be a new YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's going to be YouTube, but across podcasts, the website will have different channels that will be available on. But I think it will be this because I think a lot of people don't really get to see a little bit into what CBI companies do, our CBI companies, especially at our level, which
Mm-hmm.
is quite a large scale operation, and it's something that took me, as I mentioned, a decade and a half. It's a family business. My wife and I, we started with just, well, me and her and a desk from IKEA that was about a meter wide, and a
Mm-hmm.
laptop, and a lot of the original copy on the website I had to do it. And you, as another entrepreneur, you'll know a lot of the stuff that goes behind the scenes. So yeah, we just want to share a little bit more of that.
Okay. So we're going to get a podcast?
Potentially, maybe in the future, and of course, I have to be I have to get you to be one of the first people on it. There's no getting out of that. I think someone like you would be great to have you on.
For the record, I'm not inviting myself on. I just want to know if, your British accent is going to grace the podcast airwaves.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I've still got that British accent. Some people tell me it's a South African accent, which I think is very strange and not good, because I think it's probably one of the accents I least like. So it's a shame that I have it myself.
Yeah, so the CBI industry, do you think it needs more transparency?
Um, I think there's a lot of things that I've noticed as I've kind of gone up the ladder that trouble me, and it's always been something that I would share with my wife at the end of every day at work. And I think there's a lot of things that could definitely be improved. In terms of transparency, I think whether I don't know if transparency is the answer. I think obviously people are trying to work towards regulation, self-regulation, training, certification. I see all of this going on. I definitely noticed the whole ecosystem around it. It really varies. I mean, I was in South America just before I met with you guys in Lisbon, and I really saw another part of it that sometimes you have to leave the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and then you realize there's a whole nother world out there. Um, so I think it'd be, I don't know if it's transparency, but I think people will be interested to know a little bit what goes on, because not everyone, unfortunately, gets the right advice. And not everyone stumbles across the right person. I don't know. I think I was telling you over the dinner that I've noticed that sometimes there's up to six different parties involved in a single client citizenship application, which I found was quite troubling because no one's really invested in the file. And if you consider at its core, a citizenship application is something that you don't really have a lot of protection. I mean, you don't have an ombudsman, you don't have an independent body, you don't have a regulatory authority. So the fact that people are investing significant amounts of money into something that hasn't even been printed with your name on it and will take, in some cases now, as you're aware, it takes over a year. um, I think people really need to get really educated on it, and I don't really see a lot of forums where people are. I see Reddit, I see um, obviously podcasts, but you've got your Reddits, your schools, your this type of thing. I don't really see a lot of places where people can get educated on it. So I think that was one of the reasons why I decided to, in some way, give a little bit more education.
What do you think? What aspect of educating the client do you think is missing? Because obviously, every company has the website where it says, here's the investment minimum, and can you bring your grandparents and this and that. What's missing?
Um, I think impartiality. I think this is something that I've noticed. I live and breathe this stuff for 15 years, and although now I have a new project and I have a COO who's just been appointed, I'm still I know so much about this industry at every different level, and also partly because I started at the bottom, and so I've seen it from all the different angles. I think, yeah, I think impartiality is something that's missing. And the reason I say that is because I know some companies, and I've seen it firsthand. I've had clients come to me and they just say they used to do, let's say, St. Kitts, but when the price went up, the same person was told by the same person, the same company, no, you can't do St. Kitts anymore. You'd have to do St. Lucia. And he's just like, well, what do you mean? It's like, is it gone underwater or something? And he'd be like, no, 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 you just can't do it anymore. And I'm not, and this guy turns out to be the CEO of one of a very, very well-known private jet company, who then gets his number from somebody who used to work in that company who did their passport with us. And I just said, no, that's obviously not the case. It's just because of X, Y, and Z reason. But that company is geared towards telling every single person who picks up the phone, this is what you need to do. And that client, obviously a CEO of a private jet company, he would remember me, and since then he's brought us extremely high level clients, which is one of the benefits that come from saying, look, I don't have a preferred destination for you. It really depends on you, what do you want, and your objectives, family size, and then presenting them not just one, but at two, maybe three options for them. The other thing I noticed in this industry is there isn't a lot of customer service. A lot of a lot of companies don't get as hand on. Maybe some do, but there's others that the guys at the top just don't really do this anymore. They're just more invested in other projects and other things, which I don't really want to do. I have my CEO has been with me for over 9 years, so he knows me like the back of his hand, and that's why I've made him the CEO, is because he can keep this thing running as if I was running it myself. But I've noticed in other companies, some CEOs are not involved, and that's never good in an organization. You need to have a proper succession plan.
Hmm. And so, for context, you're based in Dubai. You've kind of always been based in Dubai, I think. Like,
I was born in London and I moved to the Middle East with the worst timing as you can possibly imagine. I arrived the same week as Lehman Brothers started to crash. So,
2008.
yeah, so it was September I arrived. I had a really good job. My background is real estate. I'm still I'm very knowledgeable and passionate about real estate, which is another reason why I'm doing Millionaire Migrant. Is that I'm kind of known for citizenship and residency, but I actually have other hobbies which I think would be of a value to people.
Hmm.
And then yeah, the same week I arrived was the same week that the world started to fall down. But yeah, so I've been there. I've been here ever since. I've spent time in other countries. I have residency in other countries. I spent a good amount of time in Portugal over the years, and so I did the residency, as you're aware. And so I'm very au fait with Portugal, and I think it's a fantastic success story as well. If you were to pick two countries that have really benefited, because I know citizenship and residency by investment, it gets a hard time. A lot of it is internal shenanigans and a lot of it is external. But when you see how
Hmm.
Portugal has been transformed and how Dominica has been transformed firsthand, those are the reasons why these programs are designed. And it makes you very happy to see that how it's transformed. And maybe we played in some way a small part in that.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Job Stacking. If you're a remote or hybrid worker looking to maximize your earning potential, then Rolf Haltza, author of Job Stacking, guarantees you'll be able to double your income by implementing his paycheck multiplication layering method. This is the exact system Rolf has used to take his own income and those of many others beyond $20K a month. With this method, Rolf contractually guarantees that you'll be able to double your income in 45 days. So, if you're interested in unleashing your earning potential and doubling your income, then click the link in the description and book a call with Rolf right now. And you've alluded a couple times to how the industry has changed over the past 15 years. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so I've noticed there's a lot of new entrants over the years. I mean, it's an unregulated industry, so there's no barriers to entry, and a lot of people coming in, which I think is good. I think guys like me need to be kept on their toes. I think it's very important, and I love the challenge and the stimulation. What I have noticed is some of the players come into the market. It's not their core business, so they do something else, and then this is just like an add-on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so people can come to specialists, or they can go to companies that have this as an add-on. That's something I've noticed recently. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's every business goes through a cycle, and I think a lot of the way that I think is that at some point I just don't know if I'm really adding enough value, and that's why I started to diversify quite a bit in the last couple of years because I just noticed that there were also other opportunities out there. Business has still been good, but I think now that's kind of one of the reasons I'm starting the new project is because I needed to be stimulated. I need a new challenge, but I also need to bring a lot of the other things I've been doing behind the scenes to all one place, which can create value hopefully for a lot of people who are interested in that
Mm-hmm.
topic and my views on certain matters. And plus, getting persons like yourself, and if you imagine 15 years of a business that's quite large now, and having processed so many applications, I have quite a strong and wide network of truly interesting, successful people. Obviously, the
Mm-hmm.
clients, but also my partners around the world, and the wider network of professionals that we work with. It's quite a good position to be in, not just for my own personal benefit, but also just like, well, these are people that I think the wider network and other people would be interested to know how they think, how they invest, how they do things. And this is a lot of another reason why we decided this new venture.
What was it like 10, 15 years ago when Skype wasn't that good? Our audio connection sucks today for some reason, but it must have. So that means it was even worse 10, 15 years ago. And you're trying to like do these transactions and it's a bit of broken telephone or I guess telephone calls. I mean,
Oh man, Spike, you're taking talking about Skype. You're taking me back a long way. Yeah, we did used to use that, didn't we? We also had Facebook, which less people use, but that was something else. Yeah, it was a very different world. RCBI was really. I mean, I don't think even think there was RBI so much then. It was really when I started, it was just St. Kitts and Dominica didn't have Schengen and was
mhm.
$75,000, and St. Kitts back then was $250,000 and had Schengen. It also had Canada too. But there was just like, the business class and the economy class in terms of passport, legal passport options back then. You didn't have Antigua, you didn't have
Mhm.
Nauru, obviously, you didn't have Malta, you didn't have all these countries. So back then it was really, really interesting times. And actually, that was when some of the craziest, I saw a lot of crazy things back then. I didn't know it at the time. I just figured that was it. But then some of the stuff you get to see, I can't tell you in this video, I can't tell you in this call, but really mad stuff. So yeah, it was different times, but very interesting times, and it was really interesting for me because it was start bootstrapping a business and just starting from the beginning. Um, I have many stories and recollections of going to Caribbean with, I don't know, what was it, from Dubai, like three connecting flights, four connecting flights. I stayed in an Airbnb. I was trying to be really budget conscious. I stayed once in Antigua, and it was like an Airbnb where they had an annex. So it's like you can stay with the annex, and I stayed there. And then it was run by a lady, I think she was a British lady, and she had an Italian husband who was a chef in one of the five-star hotels. And I would come back in the evening and they'll be like, all right, so this is the deal. Every day you get a protein from the supermarket, from an Antiguan supermarket. And then my husband's just going to make up some kind of recipe and we'd eat every day. And it was having a five-star chef cooking for you every day. And that was the deal. So that was how it started. It wasn't very glamorous, but it was interesting times.
I have a fun question for you. Do you remember your first passport deal, the first deal that you brokered? Could you tell that story?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was funny enough, it was an Italian family. It was an Italian family, and they went the whole 9 yards. I mean, I got them properties, I got them bank accounts, corporate bank accounts, a St. Kitts company, driver's license.
Hmm.
At one point they even went there and they just said, "We want you to come with us." So I went to meet them, and we had breakfast in the Marriott Hotel. If you know St. Kitts, everyone knows the Marriott Hotel, and they did the driving test, and they passed, obviously. So that was I think it was my first client, which is a bit random if you think about it. But those, I think, off the top of my mind, they were the first clients, and those I had to do the forms myself. We were living in a one bedroom townhouse. The rent was, I think, about $20,000 a year. I was driving a 10,000 dirham, which is $2,500 1998 Jeep Wrangler with big beach tires and a
Nice.
big speaker in the back that didn't work. So, and I bought it off a friend in two installments. That's how tough it was. I couldn't even pay the 2,000. I basically did 1,000 now and 1,000 a month later or 2 months later. So that's how tough it was in the beginning, trying to feed the business. So I was very lean in the beginning. So those are the first clients, and then maybe after that I had. Well, then it started to get very varied, but I'm still in touch with the initial clients. I mean, not those Italian guys. It was dealing through a fiduciary in Switzerland, but I'm still in
Hmm.
touch with the guys I did in my first year. I'm still friends with them. One is a Syrian guy that's done very, very well, and we still meet up. Another one is a Egyptian, very big Egyptian guy from Alexandria, who turned out subsequently to be one of the seed investors for Nvidia. So he's very, very happy. So yeah, and I've kept
Right.
close to a lot of these clients, and they've become friends over the years. Yeah,
That's pretty cool. So your first client was actually European, and then I
yeah.
guess at some point you noticed that the market was potentially more with Asian and Middle Eastern buyers, and then maybe fast forward now, I'm guessing you're probably seeing more Americans and more Westerners back in the picture.
Yeah, I mean that Italian back then was an outlier. Most of them were obviously closer geographically to Dubai, Middle East, Africa, Asia. We still get Europeans and North Americans. We're getting, yes, we are getting more North Americans, but probably not as much as if we had a presence in the US, obviously, or that side of town. But it is getting extremely varied. We're getting crypto guys. I was at a crypto conference a week ago, and there were a lot of people there. We are getting also we're getting really all types of different people from all different walks of life, and all with different motivations. I've had, I had, I still remember one family one that we had, and the reason that they wanted to do it was obviously to some extent travel, although they didn't have the worst passports. But for them, they just didn't identify themselves as actually being from that country. And I think that's another thing, another reason why people want a second nationality. It's not just because of travel. I realize now it's about total freedom, but also about having a separation between your home country and your second country. Some people at a very high status of life, if they're very well known people like billionaires or high profile public figures, they want a second nationality because everybody knows their business back home, and they feel they lack privacy. But this young family, they had a child, and they just said, so the guy was Arab Muslim, grew up in Dubai. The lady was Indian, born in Singapore, also lived in Dubai. They just didn't want to be, they felt in their eyes, um I boxed in by their identity and nationality. They wanted to be considered very much global citizens, and so they wanted to have a nationality that was not coming with a lot of the preconceptions about their nationality. And I bumped into them some years after they got the passport, and the father had changed his name completely to a very, very Western name. I mean, I obviously can't reveal, but it was like something like Homer Simpson. and and he's just like, hey, yeah, check it out, look, I've even got my residency card in the same name. And I was like, oh, that's a really Western name, that's a very interesting name. But when you see that, you also understand that it's not just about the simple stuff, which is travel. It's also about security, safety, identity, and sovereignty, and many other factors thereafter. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I got a. I loved it so much in Portugal. I shipped it over. It's when you go in Dubai, it's difficult to get a car that. I mean, everyone has just such a nice car, right?
Uh-huh.
But I really fell in love with the Tesla. It's so simple and uncomplicated, and it's basically an iPad with wheels, right? So yeah,
And what
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 car
was the
you got?
process like to I don't have a car yet, but I'm looking at this new Model Y. It looks crazy. This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Crema Social. Crema Social is like TikTok for international dating. It's an app you can download right now on your phone, and 3 out of 4 people on Crema are single women. The app was founded in Colombia, so unsurprisingly, there are a lot of Latinas on the app, by the way. So, how does it work? Crema Social is a social meal experience where you invite a hot girl for a lunch date via video call and food delivery. New concept, so you'll have to try it out for yourself, but this is probably the best way to meet Latinas before you visit the country. So if you're in Latin America or planning to visit Latin America, download Crema Social now and start getting dates right away. There will be a link in the description to download, or just search Crema Social on your favorite app store. Have fun, guys.
Oh, I heard about this. You're the second one who's told me about it. Um, I got the X, the P100D.
Mm.
The one that has ludicrous mode. Uh,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so that's always fun for when the wife isn't around. I can treat the kids.
Sure.
She
Out,
doesn't let me do it when she doesn't let me do it when she's around.
out in
But
the desert or something?
yeah, we try and see how fast we can go in 0 to 60. But small pleasures.
Cool. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about real estate on this podcast. And so I'll hit you with a fun one that I was interested in. So, the Egyptian CBI program, where you invest 250K in real estate and you can get Egyptian citizenship. I thought that one was cool. I'd like to be Egyptian. A lot of people say that you should be investing in the new capital that they're spinning up. Some people
I,
invest along the coast there where there's the diving, and maybe some people do kind of in like old Cairo as well. Have you done any deals or any recommendations for what kind of real estate makes the most sense for people for the Egyptian program?
we don't actually have many people doing Egyptian citizenship. We don't have, even have any demand. I think probably the only people I can imagine who'd be interested to do that would be two categories of people. I think one of them would be people who wanted to buy a really nice holiday home in Sharm el Sheikh or the Red Sea or Al Guna, which right now would be an amazingly good price given the devaluation of the currency, the Egyptian pound. If you really like scuba, there's some amazing scuba down on the south. So yes, that's one. And the second would be people who are already there. Let's say there's a lot of Africans that go to Egypt. Cairo is still a significant financial hub, and they're just there anyway, and they need a home, and I think they'll be doing it. But outside of those two categories, I really don't see any other type of demand. I'd see more people doing Turkish citizenship
Hmm.
there. Um, Istanbul is an amazing hub geopolitically and in terms of access. And I've noticed a lot of people have some kind of exposure somehow to Turkey in some way.
Hmm.
A lot more than people think, actually. A bit like the Dubai Golden Visa. Like a lot of people have it. A lot of people have a real estate exposure there. I think Turkey is a lot more than people think in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a meeting of cultures there. I have one buddy, a crypto guy. He did both Turkey and Egypt CBI. So he did Turkey first, and then he's like, "What do I do next?" And I guess decided on Egypt because it's a little bit lower for the audience. Turkey's 400K real estate investment. Egypt's 250K. What's also cool about Egypt is it can be passed along unlimited generations, which could have some value. Like maybe in the future, you never know what things are going to look like. So.
I think he's what somebody told me is more kind of a bar story type of guy. Like, there's guys who are now at that level, and we have a few of them that once they got their second passport, then they're already thinking about their third, their fourth. Hey, Jeremy, what else is out there? I'm just curious. I just want to know what's out there. Like what, the St.
Mhm.
Kitts one, the new St. Kitts passport is going to be red. And they're like, oh, no, I already got a red one. I don't need another red one. I got it because it was blue. I've got Vanuatu because it's green. Do you have anything else? So yeah, I get a few of those guys. I think we got one guy who's on his fourth passport with us. So he did
Wow.
Dominica, then he did Turkey. I think he did Montenegro as well. And that's just the ones that he did through us. I mean, he probably could have done others through marriage and descent and that type of thing.
There's definitely an element of catching the bug with these things where you do one. We have lots of clients too. They do one residency. Maybe they do
Yeah,
Mexico first and they go, cool, that's done. And now let's do Paraguay. And they just kind of keep going because, yeah, you kind of get in this rhythm of, collecting police background checks and going through paperwork and also just generally opening up your mind to this idea that it's possible to internationalize, which I think is the big thing. Like the hard parts, maybe going 0 to 1, and
yeah.
then 1 to 2 to 3. So you probably get a lot of repeat business, I'm sure.
Yeah, we do. I think you just get to a. I think there's a kind of ceiling on that because then you're going to have to fulfill you need to keep renewing it, right? So depending on like it's a 6 month entry. Like if you got a Dubai Golden Visa, it's 10 years, right? So
Mhm.
that's fine. But I think you'll get to a point where there's only so many that you can really be physically going there all the time before it just stops making sense for the cost of going there and obviously the time and the hassle of renewing the residency to the benefits you're getting that it doesn't overlap another sort of residency. So I think once you get to around eight, around that 7, 8, 9. I
Yeah.
can tell from I can tell you from experience, I'm at that stage where it's just like I don't really. I'd have to give up one to get another one. But yeah, I did Paraguay, Turkey, UAE, Qatar, Portugal. I'm trying to think which I've got a few. I've got another couple which are under. I think Georgia as well. So yeah, so I think it's the point, and yeah, but yeah, there's definitely people who really get into it. Driving licenses as well
Hmm.
is another one. Yeah, but I've noticed Latin America is really. So I just got back from traveling to a lot of countries in South America. Obviously, my wife is from Colombia, and but every time I go there, I try to at least visit one or two other countries. So we went. Well, I went without her actually. It was more just checking these places out, and it was really fascinating to see and meet all the nomads in these different areas. So, like Miguel, you know Miguel. So I met with him in Paraguay. I met some bankers in Panama. I met a few guys in Medellin as well. El Salvador. There's that guy from Liberland. He's the ambassador for Liberland in San
Sure.
Salvador. So it was really interesting to go around there because sometimes you're in the CBI bubble, and then you realize that there's all different types of people that share the same mindset and seek different things around the world.
You had alluded to this a little bit earlier in the conversation about how this most recent trip to South America gave you a bit of an epiphany around uh, other spheres of being an expat and so forth. What were some of those epiphanies?
Um, it's just really nice to see lots of people making bold moves to leave their country for reasons that are very different to maybe mine when I left. A lot of people weren't really leaving 17 years ago, 18 years ago when I was. And if they were, the expat then is very different to the expat now. I mean, call us a
Mm,
migrant, an expat, a nomad, whatever it is, we're all people just wandering around and doing different things. But I've noticed that the guys who are leaving now have a very different mindset. They're just trying to hack life, which is
yeah,
also the same when you move to Dubai and it's tax free. That's also hacking life. But they're really posting about it, talking about it. They also follow certain. They're much more present, let's say, on X than they are in other platforms. They have a different way of thinking. They have obviously location independent businesses. They run SaaS. I was in a group of guys in Medellin in a meetup there, and a lot of guys were doing like online sales. There was and there's a lot of togetherness and grouping of people, which is very different to the type of expats you might meet in Dubai, for example. Very, very different, and really interesting guys, nice guys from North America, from the UK, um, Germany, especially in Paraguay. There's a lot of Germans down there.
okay. So you went from hanging with the ultra high net worths in Dubai to the high ticket closers in Medellin, and you're at these tables, and you're like, "What the hell am I doing here?"
Yeah, it was a bit. It was like, okay, maybe this is a bit of a strange one, but sometimes it's also refreshing because, I think it's, you know, I like to get away from Dubai sometimes because it is a bit too much. And I think whichever part of the world you live in, sometimes you need to go to another part of the world as far away as possible to kind of get regrounded. And
Hmm.
for me, it was actually quite nice. I didn't judge. I don't think I was being judged. We all shared stories. Everyone's got amazing stories. Doesn't matter what your background is, or where you are, or your net worth. Um, there were a few dreamers. People were like talking like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Whereas I'm more interested about what you've done because we can all say what we're going to do, but that doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
But there was some really interesting people and actually really friendly people as well who just connected to me in their circle and guys became friends with and I'm going to meet up with again. Um, but it's just, I think it's refreshing for me because after a while, I think Dubai is great on a lot of levels, but Dubai for me has just been in a place that objectively would beat other countries if I would measure it on the same metrics. it's not a place that I just, I've ever thought, wow, I'd like to have a big gold dollar bill or picture on my wall. I'd like to drive a gold Lamborghini. That's never been me. I mean, you see the car I'm in right now, right? So it was more the idea of objectively looking at any country that will give me things that would improve my quality of life and give me safety and a place to raise my kids and my family, but also give me enriching contacts. And maybe today it's Dubai, but I don't think it will always be that. And I think in the next few years, I'll probably be somewhere else at some point.
Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about BitRefill. BitRefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. BitRefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. Are you leaning more towards the England's rural England gentleman farm hunting grouse, or more like a Colombia hacienda with the coffee farms and all that? What would you
That's
go? What would you prefer?
that's a tough one. I did listen to your guy who was talking about the British guy who was a football financier
Uh-huh.
who had like this big ranch just outside of Asuncion. And I was thinking, could I be that guy? Could I live on this ranch with all these tropical fruits and driving quad bikes while herding sheep or whatever it is over there? Um, so yeah, I definitely I'm more that. I don't see myself going back to the UK and having that life, like you said, beagling and hunting and foxing and all that stuff. No, I think I see myself over there. But I still see myself as being really annoying to my wife in terms of always wanting to look at some kind of business opportunity and her just be like, you just leave the house and just, you know, go and do some business outside. I'm a bit of a restless guy. Um, and also the other thing about Latin America that I think would also hold me back is this whole descansar thing. Do you get that a lot as well? Do you hear that a lot? Descansar?
Discount Saturn. Well, that means like to relax,
To
basically.
relax, right? That's a
Uh,
big word in Latin America, right?
yeah, yeah. What do you mean by that, though? But just
I just don't like it. I just don't like this. Like everything there, it's just like descansar, descansar, descansamos. And for me, it's just like, right, you know what I mean? It's just, maybe it's because I'm quite, a full on person.
Mhm.
I just find like, no, okay, I understand descansar on the weekend, but it's like they're already Tuesday and just like, yeah, we need to start thinking about descansar. And I think this is really a Latin thing. There's a lot of amazing things about that pace of life, but for me, sometimes it's a bit much. Do you not find that?
There's definitely cultural things, with me and my girlfriend, where I'm like, you've been in the kitchen for like 5 hours today, like. Can we get? You need like more efficient recipes or something.
Right, exactly. So you know what I'm talking about. It's just that there's this, we've got Latin partners, and there's the things that we love about them. We love about their culture, but there's also that thing that grates on you, which is productivity,
Uh-huh.
efficiency, finding things that could be done easier or better. So I think that's the thing that would probably make my stay or early retirement in South America would cut it quite short. I'd be like, no, I need to go to Panama or something, a place that things move a bit. So I think that's the only thing that would happen.
Yeah, I think we can both learn a thing or two from each other's cultures for sure.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But I think also I haven't been to Asia for a while, so I'd like to see what's over there. It's just great to see all these different things happening. Loads of residency programs, citizenship programs, loads of people just finding opportunities, sharing opportunities. It's very inclusive as well. I realized meeting people in different parts of the world and hearing their backgrounds. So I guess I'm at a point where I just want to get out of a bubble and see what's out there and see what falls at my stage in life to see what falls into my lap and maybe exploring it a bit more.
What's your travel schedule like? Are you on the road like the majority of the year?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think this year, this year I've been well. I did like 9 countries in 18 days last month.
Oh my God.
So yeah, and then I did another couple after that. So I think yeah, I did 11 countries in January, which is what, I don't know how many flights, 15 flights, 16, 17 flights. I do between 70 and 100 flights a year,
Wow.
which is, yeah, I keep telling myself that's too much and I need to stop. And then I just get one of my passports and go, you know, I want to go here. And my wife is a bit, I bless my wife. I love her to bits. She's had to put up with all of this constant, packing and unpacking and okay, we're going to go to this country. Bring the kids too. We're all going. And bless her, she never says no. And I think I need somebody like that that is okay for the journey. But yeah, it is pretty intense. But I think I've got my packing down
Hmm.
quite good. I think I've narrowed it down to a fine process as well.
What are one or two what one or two purchases or things that you have to travel with that most people don't know about or that were a game changer when you implement it into your packing?
Travel pillow.
Travel pillow.
Yeah, if you take long overnight flights, um, they give you only just one soft pillow. So I have my own. I think it's a Tempur. You know the Tempur, the pillow brand or the bed mattress brand.
Is this
Uh,
the like semicircle one
no,
type of thing?
if I do long flights or overnight flights, I take business class. But they just don't really give you very comfy pillows. So I take one of these ones. Um, I don't really like taking overnight flights anymore because you know they're obviously by the time you actually get any sleep, it's about what 5 hours.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's a transatlantic flight that would give you what 8 hours, which is what you need to get a proper night's sleep. But on the occasion that I do, I try and make sure I at least have a good pillow. So that's one. I always have a backup toiletry kit with me in case sometimes, for example, when I travel a lot to the Caribbean. So obviously we are, Saving Partners is accredited in the 5 Caribbean islands. So we do a lot of business there and I have to travel to the Caribbean. And it doesn't exist anymore, but one experience taught me about this. But there used to be an airline called Liat. Um, and it was a horrendous airline, but it got you everywhere. And once they managed to lose not only my checked in bag, but also the carry on as well in another airport. And I said, well, so there wasn't space. So what happens? I checked in the bag, I took the carry on the plane. The overhead lockers were really small because they're really small planes in the Caribbean. And they said, "Oh, give it to me. I'll put it at the back of the plane, right next to where the toilets are." And so I got off the plane and they lost I was like, where's the checked in one? It's like, oh, it's not here. I was like, how can you? So you've just taken it off the plane and left it in, I don't know, Barbados or something like that. And you've lost my checked in. So I arrived in Dominica with nothing, absolutely nothing, just my passport. And it was a Sunday and everything was closed. So we had to go and find some Chinese dude had like like grocery store and just open it just to get, I'm not joking, like a pair of pants, which is what we call underwear, um, and a toothbrush and a toothpaste. And ever since then, I always bring a second toiletry bag and a spare change of clothes. So there's one bag that I have, which is very useful for that. So that's another thing. It's like you need to be prepared when you go to Africa, South America. Um, I always pack that. So I'd say off the top of my head, those are two things. Yeah, always be prepared.
Okay. One or two more questions, we'll let you go. So, what's the secret to networking, especially across so many time zones and the meetings and also the Zoom calls? What and just in general for your business, what's the secret to your networking success?
That's a really good question. I'm actually the worst person to ask because I don't network and I hate networking. I just don't like going into an empty room and going, I need to go and shake all these people's hands, tell them about who I am, hoping that they'll be interested, and then seeing I can get any business from them, or if they're interested, any business from me, or vice versa. And I've just never been a fan of it. And so, I don't advise people to do what I did. I think networking is so critical and important. I think that I've always looked at the least amount of input to get the maximum amount of output. And so a lot of that would be, obviously investing time in online businesses. Oh, here's a hack that's relatable to this. Travel in travel Spend less money on hotels and spend more money on flying in business class, because if you
Mm,
go in business class, people just want to kill time. Nobody really want to watch the movies, especially if you're on Emirates, you've got no end of movie options. But if you're on other airlines, let's say South Americans, whatever, there aren't really a lot of movies. It's a long flight. Hang around, just start chatting to people. Some of the biggest deals I've ever done came from just being just like, hey, and they keep their passport on the side. You like, obviously, with the ticket, a lot of people just leave it on the side. So I just see their passport. I was like, oh, you're from X country. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you just do it. And they're like, what do you do? It's like, oh, I help people to get second passports. And I've managed to get some pretty big deals as a result of just chatting to people in business class. It costs a lot of money, but if you're getting next to the same people, which if you're in my business, is people that have money, so business
mhm,
class, that travel a lot in business class, and why not get chatting to those type of people? So other types of networking I've not really done, but that's something that for someone like me who doesn't like to network, I don't really have a lot of choice. I'm bored and they're bored, and then you just get chatting. Um, but I think also another thing that people, if you have a business that requires networking, you need to be in places where there's a concentration of capital. You can
mm,
network with loads of people, but ultimately you need to be around people with money if you want to be able to get people to spend that money with you, disposable income. And so when people say, "Oh, I want to live in, let's say, Barbados, or let's say Antigua, or let's say Cyprus, or some island that has a very attractive low tax jurisdiction. You can live there, but the chance of you being able to do business with anyone you meet there, I think, is a lot less than if you lived in Singapore, which obviously costs more money. Dubai costs more money. But those are countries that, if they cost more money and people can afford to live there, they have more money. And if you can get close to them in a smaller concentration, such as a Monaco or Singapore or Hong Kong,
mhm,
you're going to get business. I mean, I had I bought a property in Dubai. The guy I bought it from ended up becoming an agent of mine. The broker who did the deal asked me to come and do some, to kind of present to his team, and we got some business from there. And the guy who was the property management, it was a short-term leasing company. The CEO of that ended up becoming a client. So in one transaction, which was just for personal reasons, I managed to get, I mean, five applications from, at least maybe six, seven, and obviously they keep coming as well. Those things, every there's always an opportunity. If you just tell someone what you do and every walk of life you're in, there's an opportunity. I don't know. What's your feeling on networking?
yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. I got one last kind of fun question for you. What do you do to like maintain the Rolodex? Do you use like a modern CRM like HubSpot or Google Sheets, or you got everything written down on a piece of paper? How does a CBI firm do it?
Um, so we use Salesforce, which is really expensive, and I'm still not convinced of the benefit. But I think a lot of that is that when you use those systems, it's as much as you put into it that you get the benefit out of it. So I think that's one thing. Um, I think the other thing is that a lot of the contacts are on my phone, because I'm very hands on as a CEO. I probably shouldn't be so hands on, but I really take care of our clients, and I think they really appreciate that. And as a result of that, they call me all the time. Like every single day, I get 3, 4 people just calling me. And sometimes it's referral business, sometimes they just need a favor, sometimes it's to say hi, whatever. But yeah, I would say a lot of it is just it's a lot of people. I mean, we're talking, thousands. Um, and that's just obviously the existing citizenship by investment clients, but also it's a wider network of tax advisors, lawyers, partners, and so on. Um, and some interesting businesses come as a result of it. So I've had some opportunities that came from looking after those people who'd introduced me to someone, and then it would become quite a good business deal. But no, we use Salesforce. I think we use HubSpot as well. I'm still not convinced of the benefits versus the cost.
Mhm.
Um, and I think there's always some um, new system that's out there that's worth using. So yeah.
Okay, cool. I think we're going to link up the YouTube for Millionaire Migrant if it's ready, or for the website. I think I saw on your banner for the Savory and Partners YouTube channel, it says family business since 1797. What's the story there?
Oh yeah, so yeah, we my great grandparents used to have a pharmacy in the UK, which started out of London, central London, and was the accredit. It was given the coat of arms by the royal family. So they used to be the pharmacists of the royal family. So I think it was the king and queen, and when Queen Elizabeth II, who recently passed away, when she had a christening, the oil for the christening came from my family's pharmacy. So we had like like if you go to Harrods, they have I think 4 coat of arms. We had 3. So the family history is quite rich. We actually have a museum in Australia as well, which I actually went to visit. It's in the Melbourne University Medical School. And so I went to see it, and it was they took an entire interior of one of our pharmacies and rebuilt it there for learning purposes. I managed to get one of the small medicine boxes as well. It had arsenic in there, which we had to empty out before I shipped it to the UAE. That would have caused some problems. But so it is quite a rich history. But unfortunately, when my father, who was the last, who would be the next in line, he got meningitis when he was 5 in Africa. Because obviously it was the end of the Second World War, and he got meningitis and he became deaf. And when he became deaf, in the 1940s, 1950s, you can't use the phone, and there wasn't any other way to communicate other than letters. So as a result of that, they just sold the whole business. And I would have loved to have told you that I inherited a great big pot of money, uh, but it was quite the opposite. In fact, I actually got a call from the executive of the estate when my father passed away. I thought I was going to get some money, and unfortunately, I inherited debt, which is hard to believe. But so unfortunately, I didn't get a bunch of money, but it's all there. It's all online. It got bought out by an American firm in the 80s, I think 70s or 80s.
Interesting little history there.
Yeah,
So we'll get to wrapping up. When we say bye, hold on to the phone for a minute so the audio uploads. Just a quick reminder. But yeah, Jeremy, thank you so much for doing this and sharing a little bit more of the story and the behind the scenes. And I know everyone's going to be really excited to see what happens with the Millionaire Migrant this year. I'll
thank you.
definitely be supporting. Do you want to take this time to let people know how they can get in touch with you, find you, all that good stuff?
I love it when you say all that good stuff. I've been listening to your podcast for a while. I was just waiting for you to say all that good stuff in your dulcet tones. Um, yeah, so you can obviously I'm on LinkedIn. You can find the new setup on millionairemigrant.com. We're putting videos up. The socials have started coming up. Basically, if you want to know or if you want to ask me anything, it's a direct channel to me. Anything you want to know about citizenship or residency by investment, just reach out to me. I'm very open with my time and my thoughts and advice. And please give your feedback if I'm doing the right thing or not.
Amazing. This has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Again, our guest today, Jeremy Savory from Savory and Partners. Guys, please subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this. It really helps us grow the show. And we'll see you in the next episode. Ciao for now.